Hey everybody, this is Marian Cowie-Gowan.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date. And today, I was made to watch Return to Oz.
Heck yeah. Yeah, you were. Return to Oz, of course, is the 1985 sort of mashup of a couple of the Oz books. It was directed by Walter Murch and produced by Disney, and it was the first movie that Fairuza Balk, who may or may not be crazy these days, I don't know, crazy. So many of the people that I loved in my childhood movies have turned out to go to one extreme or the other as they've gotten older.
Dark. I think dark is the word that we use for her.
Oh, she's always dark.
Yeah.
It's an amazing movie, and if you've never watched it, you should, because it is great. You want to do a loose plot synopsis here?
I don't know if I even can. Yeah, I think you should do that.
Well, yeah. So this movie takes place 6 months after the events of The Wizard of Oz. And you will notice now Dorothy's quite a bit younger. I think maybe closer to her age in the book, but I'm not sure. And she has been talking and telling everybody who will listen about Oz, because, like at the end of that movie, and, you were there and you were there, and where did you go during the tornado? I went to a magical land, blah, blah, blah. So she's been telling everybody about it and not sleeping well. And her aunt and uncle decided that the only thing for her is shock treatment. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I went up so loud.
Which I didn't even know was a thing in 1899. Well, it's also set a little bit earlier. Well, the first movie was not explicit about when it was set.
Yeah.
But this is clearly in 1899.
Yeah, they say.
Which is before any of the original books were published, which is odd, but okay.
Is it?
Yeah, I just looked it up. The first one came out in 1900, so that's oddly specific. But anyway, I didn't know that.
I mean, sure, yeah. But we see so many things that it came out in 1900, but it was being written in 1899, so therefore it's set in 18. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe anyway,
I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
But the point is, I didn't know that electroshock therapy, any version of it, was in existence then. But
yeah, and who knows exactly how faithful this is to the book? I certainly haven't read. I think it's Land of Oz and
Ozma of Oz.
Ozma of Oz that it's based on.
Yeah.
I haven't read either one of those, so I don't know. I do know, if you want to look on some trivia stuff, on IMDb and whatnot, they're people will be like, you notice in the scene where they're chasing Dorothy after she leaves the asylum, they're using a flashlight, which was not invented until 1902. So continuity, right? So who knows with the timing,
As one of those people, I object.
Are you one of those people?
Not for this, but in general, I think, if you've gone to the trouble to establish a year, you ought to be faithful to other things.
Yeah, but then you come down to production concerns of okay, so that means that they have to be tromping through the woods with lanterns. Okay, so that's now we need a fire wrangler on set, and we need the fire department.
So why
here
did it need to be 1899? I'm just saying.
I mean, I think that year is significant to.
Okay. I look forward to the explanation of why.
I'm just saying it's certainly significant to the. I mean, so what you're. And I'm totally off track in this quick plot synopsis.
Yeah.
One of the things that the doctor, what's his name, J.W.
I don't remember
something. One of the things he's talking about is progress. We are in the electric age now, and there's this stark difference drawn between Dorothy doesn't even know how to use a light switch. Mm-hmm. There's a stark difference drawn between these rural Kansas farmers and this, highfalutin big city mental institution or whatever this is, treatment center, whatever they would have called it at the time. It's got electric light in it. They're using electroshock therapy to, manipulate the waves of the brain and all this stuff. So, I don't know. I think progress is a theme, and, also it just sounds good saying it's the year 1899. We're on the cusp of a new century. Whatever anyway. He says. So anyway, they take her there, and she escapes because if they scramble her brains, then Oz will be gone forever from her head. And she's helped to escape by a mysterious young woman, and ends up back in Oz, where she finds everything in shambles and has to go on a quest to recover the Scarecrow, who is the rightful King of Oz, of course. And she comes up against the Gnome King, and she meets some new friends.
Makes a new batch of friends.
Yep. And
saves the day.
And saves Oz, and there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's the movie. Thanks for coming to my movie talk.
Yeah.
Talk. So as with these, when they are appropriate for our son, William, we like to bring him on. So let's go ahead and just throw to that previously recorded interview with William. And welcome, William.
Hi. Yeah, it's me again. So if you don't already know, I am the son of the other two people talking right here.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, I have just spent 2 hours, I think. It was 3 when we started, and then it's 5, around 5 now. It's
a lot of bathroom breaks in there.
So then 3 plus 2... 3 plus 2 is 5. Quick math. Anyway, so I just sat in a dark room with a green ambience, watching Return to the, what's it called again?
Return to Oz.
Return to Oz.
You're making it sound like it was unpleasant, but I think you liked it, right?
And I did.
Yeah. Okay.
But like it's.
Yeah. So give us your thoughts. What did you think about the movie?
Okay, so it was cool, but I kind of wish that when they were in Kansas, they had the black and white filter.
Black and white.
Which, I mean, Dorothy's life was a bit more exciting. In Kansas, she went to that, like, mental asylum.
Yes.
Supposed mental asylum. And then she escaped, and then at the end, she got her house fired or whatever. And then they got rebuilt, and then she went out to play with Toto. I'm going to call him Togo. No, Toto.
Toto.
I know. Yeah.
No, the asylum burned down because it got struck by lightning.
Oh, good.
Yeah, their house got finished because Uncle, what's his name?
Henry. Yes.
Uncle Henry.
Somehow miraculously he was like, my leg's working now.
Yeah, well, he remembered what was important in life, and he throws away his crutch when they find Dorothy at the end of the movie. Toto tracks her down, and as he notices it's her, he throws away his crutch, and now he's serious again. He knows he has to provide, right? Mm-hmm. So what did you think? What did you think about the movie overall?
I liked it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, any specific thoughts? You have any? Did you make any mental notes while you were watching it? Whoa. Okay.
Okay. So, Dad said that there would be a scary part in the movie.
We don't need the banging. That's going to hurt the people's ears. Yeah. But yes, you can continue speaking.
I was trying to be dramatic. Okay, so anyway, my dad said that there was going to be scary part.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
That Dad's words right
will
there.
Will scar you for the rest of your life.
And I didn't even know that the scary part was happening. It was not scary. It was not scary.
It's scary. It's legitimate.
It's not. It's not.
So I probably saw this when I was 8. This came out in 85. Probably rented it in 88 or 89. So yeah, I was probably 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old at the most. So a couple years younger than you. And
if you were 10 now, it'd be 1 year younger than
I'm saying,
me.
like I was maybe 8.
Okay.
But yeah, that is legitimately scary. I'm sorry. When she, in the course of the movie, when you meet Mombi,
Spoilers.
who is for a movie that came out in 1985.
Sure.
You meet Mombi, who interchanges her heads.
Yeah.
And Dorothy has to get some powder of life from her original head case where she keeps her original head. And when she goes to get it, she knocks something over, and the original head wakes up and says, Dorothy, girl! And then all the other heads come to life, and they start yelling and screaming, and the headless body wakes up out of the bed and is running around, and it's terrifying.
It's not. Trust me, it's not.
All right. You don't have to act tough. It's okay.
What? It wasn't scary, though.
Okay,
I think what we're getting from this is that kids in the 80s were much more easily scared.
Well, and we're exposed to this sort of stuff a lot earlier than I think modern, he certainly is.
I hate horror movies. I hate walking down the stairs. Yes.
Right.
You heard me right. I hate walking down the stairs of my own house.
Uh-huh.
Okay. My own house.
So maybe you are easily scared, just not by movies.
No,
Not by the movies that we show you.
I'm
Maybe.
scared by movies.
Well, and the other thing is like this
I
movie
see
was
a scary movie. No, I'm going. I'm leaving. I'm leaving the house.
Well, again, like there was a different standard for kids' movies and scary stuff. Like they didn't shy away from putting scary stuff into movies that were intended for like PG audiences, which is like
Large Marge.
Like Large Marge, who's terrifying, of course.
It's not. She's not really terrifying.
So this was just. I think if you ask someone who is roughly my age or your mom's age, who saw this movie when they were young, I think they're going to say that this was one of those defining moments of cinema for them that scared them when they weren't expecting to be scared. I mean, the whole movie has a creepy vibe. Like the Wheelers are creepy.
Yeah, let me just talk about that real quick.
Okay, the Wheelers.
The Wheelers are weird. They're like humans on wheels. And when I first saw them, their wheels made me think of Segways.
Segways.
Like like a little two-wheeled little standing thing.
Yeah, Segways.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? You see in
and it's like it was how they were used as horses.
Yeah, to haul Mombi.
And they were also going like 16 miles an hour.
Yeah. But
it's like every time I see like someone trying to get to someone else, the horses are probably going like 35 miles an hour. Well, they were going 16.
Well, they weren't very good.
They were wheelers,
horses.
you know.
So, and they didn't get
how
changed.
How do they even move, though?
They're wheels.
They have wheels.
Do they get like roller skate?
It's the same concept as. I mean, you've had roller skates on once or twice in your life.
And I haven't. I know.
Okay, but on
I've tried and I've
but
failed.
On roller skates you move by pushing off of the wheel. You know, one foot pushes, the other foot pushes, and that's what they're doing. They just have four legs, so they're kind of pushing off with their back legs while using their front legs to steer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and at the end, when everyone is turned back to normal, they weren't changed. So this is their original state. Which
yeah. Well, the Wheelers they're normal inhabitants of Oz. They live like there's a map. I think in several of the books, they live like north or like west of the Gnome Kingdom. Oh. So they're just another, just like Oz is all these little fiefdoms. It's like here's the Munchkins live here, and
there's
the
Willy
gnomes live here,
and there's something.
The Willy Winkies, which are the troops that the Queen I think recruits, the ones that have the tall hats and that they celebrate when she dies.
Oh, okay.
She like enslaves them.
Yeah.
In the first movie. So there are all these different sections of Oz, and throughout the like 17 or 18 books or whatever it is, he explores all these different sections of Oz. And the Wheelers, they're just normal inhabitants of Oz. Like that's just how they always look.
Well, that was odd to me, and we're getting away from the
this is getting into more of our podcast part of it.
The Wheelers felt like a modern invention. A lot of the other things were like, I could see Baum writing that in 1895, 1910, whatever it was. But the Wheelers just seemed like a very modern edition. But
maybe. I don't know. Anyway. I mean, but then that's modern to us because we live through like inline skating and all this sort of stuff.
Sure.
But I mean, the Wheelers are. I mean, do you catch what the Wheelers are?
They're like horses.
Yeah, but everything in Oz is analogous to something in the real world. So everything. So the Wheelers are the nurses with the gurneys in the insane asylum. Remember how creepy the wheels creaked through the halls, and the actors that played those orderlies with they play the Wheelers.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Just like in the first movie, you were there and you were there and you were there. Everybody's there. Mombi is the head nurse. The Gnome King is the doctor at the asylum.
Okay,
They're all.
That's why he was smoking a pipe.
Exactly right.
Oh, okay, I was trying to remember what the doctor and the nurse's last names were. Wondering if any one of them was going to be Wheeler, but okay.
Right. And TikTok was probably the machine that he shows him when he's like, oh, look, he has a happy face. And when Ozma first arrives, she gifts. So Ozma is the girl who helps her escape, right? When Ozma first arrives to greet Dorothy, she gifts her with the jack-o'-lantern, who is Jack.
Oh, also Jack Pumpkin Face is my favorite character. He's cool.
He's cool. I like him, and he's really cool. And he's voiced by Brian Henson, son of Jim Henson, who directed a lot of movies that I love. And was Kermit for a little while, and he directed the Muppet Christmas Carol, which we watched.
They should have put a Kermit reference in there.
A Kermit reference.
Like once.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For his voice.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, that's Oz, right? I don't know if that's an invention of Baum, who wrote the books, or if that is just them continuing the trope that was created from the original movie.
I would think the latter, but I don't know.
Probably. Yeah. But yeah, so the Wheelers are the guys that rolled the gurneys around in the insane asylum. You know, I mean, like, and then Bellina's obvious; she's the same chicken but like just like in Wizard of Oz, all of the people that accompany her and the people that she encounters, you know, like in Wizard of Oz, the Wizard of Oz is the guy that she meets on the side of the road with the wagon, you know, who tells her fortune or whatever.
Who's the moose?
I don't know. There might be a bit where she sees a moose head and I just missed it, or it could have been a cut thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know with the Gump. I don't know what who was the Gump.
Okay.
But yeah. So yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff there. A lot of, you know, watch it 2 or 3 times, you start to realize. Kind of like I know a lot of people who are adults who don't get the Wizard of Oz twist that, like, you know, all of the people that are there at the end were also the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion and all that. Also
about Scarecrow and the Tin Man, they looked really different.
Yeah, they did. They were based on the original. I think it's W.W. Densmore and somebody else, I can't remember, who did the original illustrations. And, you know, these were kids' books, but they were also kind of, you know, they dealt with kind of serious topics in some ways. And they wanted to have this, like, sort of almost creepy vibe. But also these are characters that don't really exist in the real world. So, like, they wanted to go, you know, the Cowardly Lion just looks like a lion.
Yeah, it's a lion.
And the Tin Woodsman is like, there's no way you put a person in a suit that looks like that unless somebody's in the main body cavity. But, like, the arms and legs are really skinny metal. You know, the head is like off by itself. Like there's a long neck, you know, so the designs are very, very interesting and very cool. And yeah, you like the designs?
Yeah, they're more kind of cartoony. Especially the woods guy.
Yeah, and like Jack, who is like, I'm pretty sure at times there's a guy in the Jack suit, but a lot of times he's just he's a puppet. A lot of times
there's a person in the suit. I didn't know that.
In the Jack, like I think for certain parts of the movie where he's moving around and stuff, but I think a lot of the times he's probably a puppet. I don't know, marionette or not. And we talked about, I gave you guys the fun fact that there's a full-size man inside of the TikTok costume, which is like a big metal sphere with these legs, and he's like all squatted down and like doing a wide leg stance. And
my back hurts just thinking about that.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah. But yeah, so what else you got? Any other thoughts on the movie?
TikTok looked like also TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok.
Nice name.
Like TikTok, yeah.
But just from the helmet he had, it looked like he was like a kind of like a British World War II / World War I era soldier.
Yeah, like the style.
That too.
The style of the helmet, like the little,
and he had like a mustache,
little pan thing.
Yeah, he had like a mustache, and he kind of had an accent. Yeah,
it was hard to do with the robotic voice
too. Yeah, I don't know what that means, but yeah, I noticed that.
It's like the second I saw that hat, I was like, British military. 1917 to 1940, whatever. Whenever I forgot when World War II ended.
British, isn't it?
Yes.
Just for World War I was 1914 to 1917, 1918. Sorry, just to
But yes, Will is a bit of an information vacuum, so he learns a lot about a lot of subjects.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to say or talk about or tell the people? I think we covered most of your thoughts. Your favorite character was Jack, and
it's not scary.
And
so, do you think that any parents who are listening to this, should they show it to their kids? Like, what age is good for this movie?
What do you think?
I mean, if Dad got scared at 8, then 11. My age.
10, 11 maybe.
Like my age. If Dad got scared at like 8, then just.
I got scared at 8, but I also already seen a ton of other stuff too. So it was like, you know, I don't know. Also, like, you kids grow up on your Five Nights at Freddy's and all this sort of stuff. So you guys, you know.
But I don't even.
I'm sorry. Did you just basically say kids today?
Kids today. Kids today with your video games and your.
Get off my lawn, kids. So now you just saw the original one.
A couple weeks ago.
Do you think that kids need to see that one to understand this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So like that's where they introduce the Tin Man and Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion and Oz and Emerald City.
So you think it's better if they've seen the original?
Yeah, and it's like also it's like the Yellow Brick Road, her original house, the Munchkins.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I also got one, that like the little thing, the princess or whatever of
Ozma.
Emerald City. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also got like that like a Good Witch or whatever.
Yeah.
In the first,
yeah.
I got
Glinda.
I got vibes about like I got those vibes.
Yeah. Yeah. She
from
could,
like she kind of like appearing. That's in
Yeah. Yeah. And there's like I said, there's like a bunch of books, and I think Ozma has her own book, and this movie's based on a couple of the books, couple of concepts from the books, kind of mashed together. And there are books that don't star Dorothy, and there are books, all about the different characters, and it's just there's a ton of them.
It's a very big universe.
I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe would you read it if there's one about Jack?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll have to look.
Favorite character.
We'll look and see.
Yeah.
We'll look and see.
We've got a lot of books we have to read then.
Yeah, because Dorothy comes to Oz, but Oz is there's still things happening in Oz when Dorothy's not there. So.
And then of course I want a book about British. About British TikTok man.
That's a whole other thing. About
British
TikTok.
Tin Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll look and see, and have to see if there's anything you'd be interested in reading. So.
Oh yeah. By the way, not related to this. Our cat just got on us, and we got a new cat. Yeah.
Yeah, we have 2 cats now.
If anyone's been keeping track of our pet situation.
Yeah.
I mean,
we have our old boy cat.
He's sitting on
we
me
have our
right
new
now.
girl cat.
Little girl cat. Yeah. The little girl cat will probably not make an appearance for a while.
Yeah. She's still.
No, they
don't quite get along yet.
She's a talkative one, but
she's confined.
Yes.
She's a talkative one when she wants food and then attention.
Yeah.
And no, she's a bitey one when she wants attention. I mean, food.
Yes. All right. Well, anything else? Any parting thoughts?
It's not scary. Okay, I'm gonna put that right there.
You heard it from Will. It's not scary. Okay.
Unless you're 8.
Yeah.
It's not scary.
But you give it thumbs up.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. I like it. It's good. Like, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fun fact: to 8 Skittles while watching the movie.
Fun fact.
Good to know.
Will 8 Skittles.
Okay. And popcorn.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, you wanna say bye?
Yeah, sure. Okay, bye. I'm probably gonna be back in like a few months.
It depends.
We like having you on.
It depends.
Yeah, when we have something that works for you, we like to bring you back.
So, yeah.
All right. Say until next time.
Until next time. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Will.
Well, I'm trying to think of something to say.
The bye is what you can say. You're trying to think of like a clever sign off.
Wait, stop.
Yeah.
Potatoes.
All right.
Bye.
You heard it here first. Potatoes.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Potatoes are great.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and we're back, and always fun to have William on the podcast. So let's try. So in some of that we talked about things that were really more appropriate for this main body of the podcast. So we'll do as little rehashing as we need to. I think the one thing I did say in that is I think I said that the original the artist that a lot of this is based on was W.W. Densmore, and I think it's actually Denslow, and John R. Neal was the other artist who did a ton of the illustrations that these versions of the characters were based on in the movie. Mm-hmm. So of course, this is a childhood favorite of mine, so I got a lot to talk about. Why don't you just go ahead and just give me your Cliffs? It's not Cliffs Notes anymore. What is it?
Spark Notes?
Yeah, your quick summary. What do you think?
Okay, so I liked it much better than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm. Because you hate Fairuza Balk.
Well, so here's the thing. The first thing I saw her in was American History X, when she's somebody's girlfriend and she's a raging racist and she's just terrifying. And
wonderful actress. That's how she dressed.
Well, I have not been able to shake that image of her. I have a couple of actors where it's like that. And I think that's a lot of people experience this, but everyone loves them, and I'm like, but I saw them in this thing first where they were a bad guy, and I can't shake that. Like,
right, it's a weird thing because what you're really saying is this actor was so good, they convinced me they were this character who was hateable.
Well, I like Alan Rickman is always the sheriff of Nottingham.
Sure, yeah.
Or never fully trust him.
Yeah. You never trust him.
So yeah, I looked it up. The character was Stacy in American History X.
Okay,
so
Stacy.
That's Stacy. She ruined it for me.
Yeah.
You play a racist. You are. Yeah.
Blacklisted from Marian's headcanon of actors.
Can't do it. What's funny is going along with that. So Piper Laurie plays Annie M. Kind woman, very caring. Like she's the one who takes Dorothy to this institution, but she doesn't know what it is. It's all out of concern for Dorothy. Well, my introduction to her was as Carrie's mother in Carrie.
Yeah.
So again, not a positive thing. And then on the flip side, so the actress who plays the mombi and then the nurse at the institution is named Jean Marsh. And I don't know if American audiences know her very well, but she's British. She was on this show on PBS that my mom loved. It was called Upstairs, Downstairs. And she played a maid named Rose. And this was all before I was old enough to watch this, but Rose was a saint in my estimation. And so now that actress is playing this evil person, and I had a really hard time wrapping my head around that. So this
terrifyingly evil person.
Yes. This whole movie is like the actor is not who you think they are.
Yeah. Yes, with several of them.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I admit I didn't do deep enough research for this. I don't know how attached this is to Jim Henson production. I don't think it is. I mean, Brian Henson is in it. He voices the Jack. But several of the voices are extremely familiar from the casts of the various Jim Henson movies of this contemporary time. Like Belina, the chicken, is voiced by the same woman who I should have written her name down. By the same woman who does the trash heap lady in Labyrinth. When they're trying to get her to forget, she's like, "You have a printing game. Look at this printing game. Oh, this is lovely. You wouldn't want to lose your best friend. Here he is." She's trying to convince her not to continue to pursue her way to the labyrinth and instead to stay in this fake world that they've created that looks like her room, that looks like the main character's room. And it's that voice is just so familiar.
Okay.
And it's been in so many different Muppet adjacent projects, and some of the guys who are doing the voices on the gnomes, who mostly just appear as faces on rocks, they're all super familiar voices. So it's always crazy in movies like this to see not only, like you said, actors who are playing against type, but then to hear voices of not famous actors who are like famous in a microcosm of this small world that I live in. And memorable and, noticeable.
Yeah.
So that was cool too, to see not only, like you said, playing against type, but lots of familiar voices and people who are like, that sounds a little bit like, and like you said, like you pointed out, Deep Roy is in this movie,
right? Although
I love, but he doesn't do anything. You never see him if he's actually live. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's credited as the Tin Man, but if he was in the torso of the Tin Man, I don't know. I
was a little weirded out by these different versions of the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion. I guess I've seen the original so many times that to me is what the character should be. And they were very cartoony.
Yeah.
In this version.
They were illustrations.
Well, and I get that. Like if you and I think there's something to that when you're making a sort of a part 2 of a series and you say, we're not making a sequel to the movie, we're making a sequel to the book.
Yeah.
We're making a movie of the sequel to the, whatever.
Yeah.
I get that, but I'm very attached to the original trio, and to see the new version, the Scarecrow creeped me out.
Oh, the Scarecrow's great because he embodies the Scarecrow, right? Like, I mean, I think in the original Wizard of Oz movie, it's great. He's great. He's floppy. He does all sorts of great stuff to sell being a Scarecrow, which is like no bones and all this stuff.
Yeah, no, so I like the original Scarecrow, but this one weirded me out.
He like everything about him. His face isn't very expressive, and if you pay attention, a lot of the fingers of his gloves are not fully stuffed with straw, so they just kind of sit there limp. So when he moves his hands, he has all these like extra hanging fingers, and it just sells. And he does all the same floppy motion and stuff, all the with wobbly legs, and even the guy doing the voice is even kind of doing an impersonation of what's his name from the
I don't remember which one.
From the original. He's kind of doing an impression. You know, it's a little bit of Dorothy, you know, it's like goofy kind of thing he's doing.
Yeah. I noticed the farmhands are not on the farm anymore. Was the tornado that devastating that everyone had to go away to find work?
Maybe, I don't know.
That's my explanation.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, but that's also like, that's one of the things where there's we're kind of going all over the place, but with the theming of this, like we were just talking about with Will, you know, everybody who's participating in this adventure is currently participating in Dorothy's life in the real world, just like in the other. And all of her friends from the first movie are gone away. Mm-hmm. So when she gets back to the world, when she gets back to Oz from the real world, all of her friends are gone away, and she has to, you know, track them down and find them. So yeah, I mean, there's all these adjacent themes.
Well,
but
I suppose then carrying that further, so that it makes sense that the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion are different because they're no longer based on people that are in her life at the moment. Yeah, but keeping on the visuals, because that's one of the things that I think, and the production design, that to me sold this movie beyond everything. Mm-hmm. I love this sort of movie. There are movies we're going to watch on here: Adventures of Baron Munchausen. This obviously. For some reason, I'm blanking on any others, but there are a lot of these sort of fantasy movies that trend more towards, they're like children appropriate. Well, I mean, Labyrinth is one of them. Most Dark Crystal, most Jim Henson movies are in the same vein, but they don't shy away from the dark side of stuff. And I think there's something so, because I haven't read Wizard of Oz, but what you always hear about it is that like there's some dark stuff in these books. Mm-hmm. You know, like the Tin Woodsman. Like I'm pretty sure in like the first book, like he kills like 100 wolves or something. Like they're attacked by wolves, and he just like hacks them all to pieces. Yeah, with his axe. And in this one, Dorothy is telling his origin story. A witch enchanted his axe, and he just cut off parts of himself.
He kept cutting parts off until he was all Tin Man.
Yeah.
Like, and they all have the bizarre stories like that, you know. And like Jack, who is this pumpkin head. He's supposed to be like a scarecrow analog, but
he's terrifying.
Oh, he's great. Yeah. So
I'm not a fan.
Here's a good bit of trivia. So, so this movie had a weird production. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it had a weird production. And, one of the things that was supposed to happen that at some point funding cut off is Jack was supposed to be articulated like the Gump, or any of the, like the Scarecrow, any of the other ones that move. His mouth and eyes were supposed to move and emote. Would he have been more or less creepy with a moving mouth and eyes?
I think more.
I kind of end up on the side of less, because there's just something so creepy. Because once his mouth and eyes are moving, he's just like, he's a character. He's a puppet. But when his features don't move, but the rest of his body does, and he's just talking out of this dead jack-o'-lantern stare, that just gets that hits the creepy points for me.
Well, the pumpkin on top of the rest of the body is giving me Headless Horseman vibes, or at least in the, I feel like there's umpteen versions of
the Ichabod,
but in
Crane,
the
Disney
Sleepy Hollow, the Johnny Depp version, then there's the pumpkin is the head, right?
I don't know.
I think.
I don't know. I don't remember.
There's some versions of that where
he throws a pumpkin.
He's got a pumpkin.
Yeah, he's got a pumpkin for a head. He throws a pumpkin. Yeah. There's the Ichabod Crane story that's with the frog and toad or whatever on that Disney short.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, but all of the character designs I think are great. The stuff they did to accomplish, like we said, there's a guy inside the TikTok costume, which is crazy. He's like a contortionist or a gymnast or something. I don't know. But he's hunched over inside of the suit. Like the Wheelers and what they had to do, I don't think in 1985 inline skating was even a sniff of a real thing. So
I'm wondering, were they like speed skaters or,
I don't know, but is
there like competitive roller skate racing? Was it that kind of thing?
Well, there was roller derby and stuff. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, like there's footage of all these guys in like street clothes learning how to do this because they're basically on foot and hand stilts that have wheels on the end of them.
Oh, wow.
And they're learning how to move, and they really like the Wheelers, like they read as human because they have human heads, but they read as other as well because their movement is so natural. Like the one head Wheeler who loses his mask and he leads them to Mombi. He leads Dorothy and her and her army, quote unquote army, TikTok, to Mombi's castle. Like he has this great movement. It's almost like the Scarecrow when the Scarecrow does the floppy leg stuff. Yeah, where he's falling down and he's getting back up and he's slipping and one leg moves weirdly and they're laughing all the time and they make bird calls and all sorts. It just there's a person in there. Excuse me, when you look at a Wheeler, but I believe also that it's a Wheeler. Like I would totally believe that could be a thing, which is true of several of the creations. Like the way that they move in this movie and in the original. But yeah, just all the different characters. Like you were saying, they are a shock if you're used to 1939 Wizard of Oz. But I think the other thing, like we were talking about with Will, do you need to watch the other movie? I think so much doesn't hit if you haven't watched the other movie. Like when she comes across the house, and even if you're only using the other movie as reference, like where that house crashed. And it crashed in the middle of the square practically
so
for
it has
the Munchkin.
a lot more impact.
Right. So you're like, oh my God.
What was,
Yeah. And then when she finds the bricks and the yellow brick road is all messed up.
Remember what it used to look like.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the real world, only 6 months has passed, but clearly far longer has passed while she's been away.
Yeah.
In Oz.
I was noticing too, so some of the Emerald City looks different, but there are things like in Mombi's castle, there's that spiral staircase where she's trapped at the top, and I feel like there's something like that in the witch's castle in the original. So there's now maybe that like, a spiral staircase, no big deal. Yeah,
maybe. I mean, I'm sure that this movie's full of callbacks. But I mean, just as far as the production design and everything, I think it's great. And there's some really standout stuff. The Gump, who is like a moose analog that is a head on a wall, and they use the powder of life or life powder, whatever it's called, to bring him to life. They strap him to a sofa and put a bunch of like palm fronds on his wings and sprinkle him down.
All live, so he's able to fly.
Right. Yeah. And he's a sofa Gump, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Like his animatronic is so well articulated. There's just some standout work. It's not just production values, but it's just some of the sets are crazy.
I liked the Gnome King, although are gnomes typically made of rocks? That was, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
But I like the depiction of him and how every time what is the thing, the fewer people that remember
Oz as it was,
then he can become human and really take over. You notice he's becoming less rock and more human looking as
because they do a little standoff at the end where you have to go into a room and figure out which which ornament, as he calls them, is a person, because he's turned all these people from Oz, like the Scarecrow, into knickknacks for his little party room, which I don't know how he uses his little party room, but
well, and it seems like a sort of a cheat because there's no resemblance.
Right, it's
between you just have to guess. So, what Dorothy uses to figure it out is that they're green because they're from the Emerald City. But
right. Well, she actually just closes her eyes and happens to, and then that's like she was guided to it, and then then she realizes, oh, you were a giant emerald. So you probably, but the thing is, if you watch the panning shot through there's a bunch more solid green stuff in there. Like, who else is in there? And at the end, she does wish all of the inhabitants of Oz back to normal. Yeah. So you assume anyone else who was in there got, you know.
So the creatures turned to stone I was remembering in the Narnia series that happens. That feels like it must be a common thing among fantasy series. Are there other ones where that happens?
I don't know, but I mean, I imagine they traced that back to Medusa. So it might just be one of those things of like the hero's tale and all this stuff. Like, it's just we need something to happen. Okay, well, everybody's turned to stone,
and then it's pretty easy to turn them back too. So.
And it's even apparently losing your head is not enough. Because I really want to see the cut of this movie where all the headless ladies, because Mombi takes all these beautiful women's heads. She's got 30 heads in her menagerie of heads. Yeah, where they all just come back and they still don't have heads, and they're just
trying to
find spurting blood.
Here's speaking of corollaries between her real life and Oz.
All right.
The real head was kept in case 31.
Yeah.
Her room at the asylum, whatever, is also 31.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. And she opened the door at some point and I saw it on the door and I thought, okay, that's going to come back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, point. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure there's a ton of little callbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, speaking, kind of still a little bit on the visuals and the production design type. A ton of characters from the books are all rendered at the end. There's like the Frogman or something of Oz, like you can see him in the background. You can see all these characters that are spread throughout. Like there's a certain amount of like real love that was put into this movie, which was an absolute like theatrical disaster. Like it failed at the box office. It made like half its budget, but has since gone on. When you're dealing with movies in the 80s, especially the mid to late 80s, there's a pretty common story that happens very often, which is, man, this bombed at the box office and then became huge on VHS. And this is one of those movies that just really grew on VHS. And, because it was still related to the Oz franchise, kind of, got some stuff based on that. And, I just think that was such a tough sell. Even though it's just so many years later, that movie the original Wizard of Oz is such a part of everything. It was such a hard to show the stuff because if you go and watch the trailers, like they show glimpses of the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and you see young Fairuza Balk and you're like, okay, Dorothy's too young and that doesn't look like the Scarecrow I know. And so I think, it was fighting an uphill battle, but it was done with like such care and like love.
Yeah. I wonder, because it used to be a thing, I think probably until, I don't know, the mid 90s or later, when The Wizard of Oz was shown on TV once a year and only once a year. And it was a big event.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was with limited commercials too. So you got the impact.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And so it was a thing that everybody saw.
Yeah.
Fairly regularly.
Yeah.
I
It
guess.
became a thing that families did.
Yeah. And I wonder now, like, our kid's 11 and he just saw the original.
For the first time.
I feel a little derelict. Are there plenty of kids who have never seen it because it's just they'd rather watch other stuff and there's too many other choices? Would a redux of any of the Oz movies do better now because people don't have that sharp memory of the original because it's not a thing to watch it every year? Yeah.
Well, ask Sam Raimi and James Franco. Because 5 or 6 years ago, they made whatever it was.
Oh, that's right.
They made that version of, what is it, Oz?
I don't know. Oh, it's about the wizard.
Yeah, it's about the wizard. Yeah. And it's it's super referential. Like if you've seen the designs on like the Willy Winkies and the flying monkeys and all that, like they're super referential.
Yeah, I remembered. So when they're introducing Ozma, they're like, "Oh, her father was king of Oz before the wizard," and I was like, "Well, that's a prequel that I want to see."
Yeah. I hope that's in a book somewhere.
In the original, he's just like, "I just showed up because a tornado took me.
Right, I happened to they just thought I was
landed here, and that but." Here it makes it sound like there was some sort of battle, and I'm like, how did that happen?
That might be what that movie tells. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was a peaceful transfer of power or if it was what it was or not. I don't know.
Ozma was in diapers, so she wasn't able to take over, and the wizard was. I don't. Interesting.
But yeah, so talking about a lot of love put into the movie. This movie has a pretty crazy production story. So Disney was obsessed with duplicating the success of the original Wizard of Oz, and they purchased the rights to the Wizard of Oz movies to make movies for the Wizard of Oz books, everything except for the original Wizard of Oz, in the 50s.
Oh wow!
So they had been holding on to these rights and using it to be able to put stuff in their parks and do things that were referencing the Wizard of Oz because they had a certain amount of rights to it, I guess. Mm-hmm. But they were running out of time. They were a couple years from the copyright lapsing in the early 80s. And apparently, and he's not a household name, obviously, Walter Murch, who did who directed the movie, but apparently was a big deal in Hollywood. He was an editor and a sound designer and sound editor. Mm-hmm. And he had worked on The Godfather and early George Lucas stuff like THX whatever 11168 whatever it is, and he had worked on all these. He worked on like Francis Ford Coppola's first movie and all these movies. He's got this huge CV of editing and sound design, and he's got Oscars and all these nominations. And apparently Disney was just like, hey, we want to do something with you. And he was looking to direct his first movie. They're like, is there something you want to do? And he's like, I really have always wanted to make a movie about the other Oz books.
Yeah. And they're like,
and to work on that. And they were like, so we've got these, here we are with the rights to this, which are about to expire. And we really need to do something with it. And so he started in a production and they were pretty enthusiastic and they were giving him, a pretty decent budget. And then leadership at the Disney changed. I don't know if it was the film division or whatever, but some way leadership changed and there was this sudden like, oh my God, what's going to happen with this movie? But the new management comes in and they give him even more money to make the movie. And things are going forward and they're moving forward, but stuff's not turning out. And it's the, whatever, the dailies don't look good, whatever. And so they decide to pull Walter off the movie and take it away from him. And they're shopping it around. They're looking for another director. And, some of this is just, whatever. You watch a YouTube video, you see this. Some of it I've read in different articles. And apparently, like, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola all went to Disney and they were like, you need to give him this movie back.
Yeah.
And I think the story is, and this is not, I don't know how confirmed this is, George Lucas, who of course at the time was hot off all three Star Wars movies,
right,
was like, look, if he gets back on this movie and you don't like the direction it's going in, you can call this a George Lucas movie and I will direct the rest of it. But give him a chance to make his movie.
Yeah.
And they rehired him and here you go.
Interesting.
Yeah. So just this crazy story. And then, like I said, the funding got a little lighter, so they couldn't make Jack's mouth move. And some of the stuff they wanted to do, they couldn't do it. Stuff had to become claymation that maybe wasn't originally going to be, that maybe was going to be puppeteered or whatever. But yeah, just this crazy production of like Disney was about to get rid of the rights to the Wizard of Oz movies, and the director lost the movie and came back, and all these heavy hitters who Walter had worked for all coming in saying, no, for real, like you got to give him this back. And as far as I can tell, Walter Murch never directed anything else.
Wow.
He never directed another movie. Like I think I saw a directorial credit on like an episode of the Clone Wars Star Wars television show, animated show.
Oh, wow.
But like nothing else. And he continued to do sound production work.
Yeah.
And editing and stuff for sure.
He was like, well, got that out of my system. Don't want to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was, it's filled with horror stories about like, the costume for TikTok being horrible on that actor, and the Wheelers taking a long time to learn how to do it, and everything being, crazy on set. And of course, Fairuza Balk's very young, so she can only work certain hours, and the chicken animatronic failing and all this different stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got just a crazy production story, which is why I really like what we actually got is great.
Yeah.
But if you think about like someone who respected the source material that much, like had this movie been a success, probably would have gone on to make
more,
the rest of the certainly some of the books based on some of the rest of the series. For sure. I'm trying to think what else we want to talk about.
This is not a deep point. I just think it's funny that now, going on 30 years later.
Yeah.
Going on 40 years later. Sorry, I can't do the math. Both TikTok and Mombi have other meanings.
Oh, do they? What's Mombi?
Well, Mombi is a mom zombie. Like, I mean, it's...
Did you just make that up?
No, I didn't. It's like a mother.
It's okay if you just made it up.
Since you're not a mother, maybe you don't know about it. But no, it's not a common thing, but it's just, a mother who hasn't slept.
Oh, okay. Sure. I get it. So, TikTok is, yes, quite because of course, when our son first heard the name TikTok, he was like, he perked up.
Yeah.
He got ready to do his dances or whatever. He doesn't do TikTok.
No. We're going to keep it that way.
We're going to try to. I mean, this is one of those movies where in the lead up to it, I try to do a little bit of research because I like it so much. And I have watched it probably half dozen times or more over the course of my life. But one thing that I don't know a lot about is, and this kind of, sent me in that direction, is Baum, like L. Frank Baum, and Denslow and Neil, the guys who did the illustrations and stuff, and kind of, you know, going down that sort of rabbit hole of stuff about them. And hey, you know, like there's some pretty shady stuff about Baum here and there, but also that like he wrote a book series in like the early 1900s that was effectively about like a socialist monarchy.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of, I'd be interested to go back to the books and compare it to the adaptations, because I'm sure there's a whole lot of stuff that had to be excised.
Yeah, well, there's stuff in the book about them explaining like how Oz works, and they're like, well, everybody gives to their neighbor whatever they need for life, and everybody has the food and the shelter and the games and the music that they want, and everybody's satisfied because they have as much as they want. And if we ever have lean times, the ruler gives us all of our needs from his stockpile, and then when we have boom times, we refill his stockpile.
Funny how that's a bad thing.
Right. But they're like, Oz is 100% like a socialist commune. Even you see in like the first Oz movie, when they all come in and they just immediately are like, oh, let's restuff the scarecrow with fresh straw, and let's primp the lion, and you know, let's buff the Tin Man, and everybody gets new clothes and new, you know, everything. Like that's just the way that society worked. And I think there's some inconsistency as the years went on. Like sometimes Oz had money, but most of the time it doesn't. Some kind of currency, but most of the time it doesn't. Yeah, there's weird stuff you read, and then you read like about his life and how like really this stuff was successful, but at a certain point, no one wanted to read anything else from him but Oz stuff. So like the last like 6 or 10 Oz novels, he really made them sort of under duress. Like there's stories about him having to sell the rights to the original books to keep from losing his house.
Well, I was looking at the list of books, and he was cranking them out like one a year.
Right. It was all he could do for money. So at a certain point he got and that's why some of the later books get kind of weirdly political, because at a certain point he was like, okay, well, I'm writing these books and people are going to buy them because they say Oz. So let me talk about socialism and all this other stuff. But yeah, also like he was a big colonizer, you know, thought that the reason the white man was in charge of North America was because it was their right.
Interesting.
You know, and there's some real, but it's just like Lewis Carroll and all these like there's some real shady stuff if you want to go. Like
there's a lot of gross
everybody
stuff
who wrote
classics.
Everything that you love before the year like 2000 and even after in some cases is a real shitty person. For the most part, because
or how about, can we say, just had shitty views?
Yeah, right.
Was a very much person of their time.
Exactly, and that's you get into this whole discussion about how do we deal, you know, how do we separate art from artist and all this sort of stuff. Like it becomes difficult, and I think there's a good conversation to be had there. Not here, not now, on this podcast, but there's a good conversation to be had there about how do we look at works from, you know, people who were in favor of the Native Americans being extinct because they've lost their glory.
Well, the whole Little House series.
And the Little House, like, you know, it's all so, and it's just a world we have to live in because everything is evolving, everything is changing. Our views on people and humanity and science and all these things inform us as we go forward. And like the people who didn't have the advantages that we have of all of that information, like they held some pretty unsupportable views, but also they did some really crazy stuff. And for all of the things you can find bad about Baum, you know, still here he is effectively indoctrinating kids into the benefits of socialism, which is, you know, positive in my book. But yeah, just like I said, when you hear the stuff about like he kind of hated Oz by the end and he was just turning out the books to keep from losing his house and to make any amount of money. Yeah. And that he didn't even have the rights to some of the books anymore. And just, it sounds like his greatest triumph became like his most hated.
I believe it. Well, it looks, he did 14 books. That's a lot of time to spend with a kingdom.
Yeah. And I want to say Neil wrote a couple.
There were a lot after Baum died. Well, and I noticed something in this series that happens in the Narnia series too. You start out with one heroine.
Yeah.
And then eventually things shift, and like you shift from A to B, or like A and B together, and then A goes away, and then it's B and C, and then, you know, and in the Narnia books, the explanation was that eventually children grow up and they are too old for Narnia. And so you just keep getting, you know,
Yeah, you just got to get new ones.
Yeah. But in this case, I wonder, was he just like, I am so tired of this Dorothy person.
Right.
I got to come up with somebody else.
I'm pretty sure the second book doesn't even have Dorothy in it.
Yeah, I looked at
like,
the
Yeah, it's like some kid who's owned by a witch or something.
She sort of pops in and out.
Yeah. So yeah, I think and there are so many of the books that I think are just really expanding the world. What we now would call world building.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just a crazy dig down into that sometime and all of the stuff that's actually talking about themes, the stuff that's actually there in the books, or even the stuff that's in this movie. One of the things that gets talked about is the Gnome King. What's your take on the Gnome King? Because the Gnome King's point is, you all came in here and took my emeralds and you took them to your city and you built your emerald city. How do you think that would make me feel? Because you took all my emeralds. To which Dorothy says, but you have so much. And he says, well, that's not the point.
Mm-hmm.
You took what was mine and it's only right to give it back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what's your take on because I think there's a few different ways to interpret sort of the position of the gnome.
Yeah. Well, and then you mentioned earlier, you kind of overplayed your hand, or, gave me a peek at your cards, or, pick your metaphor. You mentioned colonizers earlier. So yeah, that kind of reminds me of Western museums that took artifacts from the Middle East or Africa and now have it in their museums and are just like, well, it's ours now.
Right. Why should we give it back? Or
we wouldn't take care of it properly. And the museums in Baghdad or Nairobi or Tunisia are like, but it's ours. So it doesn't matter if we would take care of
literally our heritage.
Yeah. Well, and then interestingly, Dorothy's like, but he didn't do it. He wasn't the one who took them.
Right. That the scarecrow didn't actually he just showed up and all the gems were already there. Why should you
which is
punish him?
Interesting in the lens of some of the discussions that we have today about privilege.
Yeah. Oh, if you want to really go down that.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you want to go down that. So the one you also hear a lot of people, and this I think is maybe more towards what he was going for in the books, is the doctor, the electroshock doctor.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, he represents technology. He represents the new way. And the doctor is named J.T. Worley or something, which is suspiciously close to J.P. Morgan. And he has all of the riches. And even though he has more than he needs, why should anyone else have any? Because they're his.
I've heard about that.
The robber barons, as they were, they were rising up. It's maybe he's a sort of a analog for them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's, as you were saying, articulating well, stolen history. And so there's I think there's a couple of interesting ways to interpret him. He's not that ambiguous, and even he's fairly ambiguous, even though he's pretty simple in what he just wants his stuff back.
Mm-hmm.
But you can read a lot into it. And he also wants, not only does he want his stuff back, he wants no one to remember the people who used to have it. In the same way that maybe, people want no one to remember the Native American cultures or whatever cultures that they took from. And the way that he becomes more human, the more people forget about the previous, there's no one there to tell the tale of what he did. So he becomes more human.
Because history is written by the winners. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This tripped me out a little bit.
Yeah. So, and you look at his ornament room. It's it's this immaculate.
It's a museum.
Of full of artifacts. And you look around and there's all sorts of different antiquities. There's Roman, there's all these different cultures.
Well, and I thought it was interesting. His corollary, the doctor in the real world, is saying, "Oh, don't remember that. That's just a bug. We're just going to get rid of that.
We're going to wipe away all these memories of things that your imagination, and all of these flights of fancy, so that you can just become another worker, in the machine, and you'll forget about things that bring you joy and oh yeah, and there's and like I said, the not at all veiled criticisms of technology as it's coming into the world and overtaking versus the wholesome life that's depicted on the farm. So there's just all kinds of themes, and it's just
Yeah.
Well, now it's way more interesting than you think it would be when you pull back one layer for like it's a kid's movie.
Yeah. Well, now I want to go and see, was there electrotherapy in the original book? Because I think of that as something that happened more in the 50s.
Yeah. Oh my God. Is TikTok actually spelled like TikTok?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, on IMDb, TikTok, the character is spelled TIKTOK.
Oh gosh.
Oh my God. Is that?
I don't know.
Did TikTok make a reference to the Oz or? Oh my God. Okay. Great. Wonderful. But yeah. There's all kinds of themes. And as someone who hasn't read the books, I'm interested in how much of that is actually there, especially knowing that Baum is like, this socialist sort of, and he got fame, but not a lot of riches off of his work, and that's why I think in later years he used it just as kind of like a way to make money.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. So he needed capitalism after all,
right? As don't we all? Yeah. I mean, I think we're winding down a little bit. I mean, the biggest point that I think always needs to be driven home about Return to Oz is that it's terrifying. It's scary. It is scary. I don't care what it's scary.
If you'd say so.
So, I knew you guys were not going to find it scary. But I think there is a really good creepy vibe. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of the movies in the 80s got this, like Munchausen and Barry Munchausen and Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. They got this idea that fantasy could have a dark edge. And so much of what's happening in the early parts of the Oz sequences are creepy. Headless statues. Everybody's a statue. Headless statues. Wheelers, beware the Wheelers written up on the, on the thing. Like there's a lot of tension that's built. And then when the Wheelers are introduced, you see their helmets because their heads are facing downward, which have like crazy faces on them. And you're like, is that their face? Oh my God. They're like, what do they look like under those clothes? Like how do the wheels attach to their bodies? And then they chase her and they're making all these weird noises and laughing and cackling like the Joker and making bird noises. And then, you get inside and meet Mombi and she's kind of creepy. I love she has this like dress on that has these like feathers that come out of the back. And there's a really nice touch where when she moves, like the feathers kind of clang together like metal feathers. So you just hear this like kind of clanging sound when she moves around. It's just so, and then she just changes her head right in front of
as you do.
Dorothy, like you do. Like she says, I want to change into something more comfortable. And she literally just changes her head.
What I thought was interesting was...
Sorry. I meant to hit my cough button and I hit yours. Go ahead. Okay.
So what I thought was interesting was apparently the memories stay with the head.
Yeah. I love that concept. Because
I wish I could do that.
Yes. Because when she finds Jack, who is the pumpkin head guy who was brought to life by this life powder, he says she was wearing head 22, and I just don't think she's worn head 22 because she was going to chop me up into a pie, and I just think she hasn't worn head 22 since she found me. Yeah. So I'm just up here forgotten about.
The concept of both changing, how your head looks and keeping the memories with that head. Like right. I am all about that.
You're just going to have certain heads that just have like a masking tape X over the door. Like, don't put that head back on, no matter how much you like it.
This has memories of 7th grade. Right. Do not.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you'd have to just, if you were growing up, she's got 30 heads, 31 if you count her original head. So you need 12 heads, one for each. Well, I guess 13 if you count kindergarten. Yeah. And then you want one for each year of college that you can, you want to be able to like
you want to
segregate.
Be able to start fresh.
So I think you're going to give like fully half of your heads over.
I feel like at this point I'm going to need 44 heads.
Right.
I need a fresh one for each year.
I don't want to be left with like 13 heads. Like what can I even do with only 13 heads? No. What if there's a party, a formal party? I don't have a formal head because I wore it by mistake in 12th grade.
Right.
To the prom,
I need a lot.
Right. I need a lot. But this movie is scary. There's a ton of creepy stuff leading up to it. And then when she goes to get the powder of life from case 31, which is where the original head is, which of course is the head nurse, nurse. The head wakes up and says, and the crazy voice. And then all the other heads wake up and they're all screaming and headless body. And that is, if you weren't scared by it, at the very least, you could be like, that's pretty creepy. Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, if you can be like, imagine yourself in that situation of like, oh my God, all these heads woke up and started screaming at me.
Yes.
And then the headless body is like, gets a stool and like breaks open the glass because Dorothy's got the key to the.
What I noticed is that the headless body is not running around like a chicken with its head cut off.
Yeah. One of the best characters in this that I think we haven't really covered is Belina.
Yeah.
Who is she's just there to like give sassy commentary.
She apparently has quite a role to play in the original books. I looked it up.
Oh, really?
And her original name was Bill because they didn't know if she was a rooster or a hen.
Because she wouldn't lay an egg.
Right. And then they call her Belina, but keep the original. And she stays in Oz and she has a whole bunch of chicks and she names them all Dorothy. Right. But then she learns that some of them are filthy roosters. Oh no. Roosters. And you don't know like who does she have the chicks with, and it's great. So.
Yeah, who is inseminating these chicken eggs in Oz?
Right. And you sort of get the feeling that she doesn't want anything to do with a rooster, so did she figure out a way to
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. That's a whole other.
Eesh.
That's a whole other thing. Okay, why is the gnome allergic to eggs? That feels a little bit too neat. That is this a lesson about veganism?
Maybe it is. Maybe there's a point made that the doctor is a vegetarian or something.
Or is there something about, living versus non-living things?
Maybe. And
when they talk about the deadly desert, that appears to be a distinction.
Yeah. And maybe it's a rural versus city kind of thing. Maybe at that time eggs were looked at as something that poor country people ate.
Maybe.
And civilized people didn't eat eggs. And also, the off and on, like looking at it from our perspective versus the perspective of when the book was written. But like the contemporary thinking in 1985, we were probably in that period where eggs increase your cholesterol, therefore no one should eat eggs. So there's that,
Keeping up with the deets on eggs just gives you whiplash. Right. Like eggs are good, eggs are bad, eggs are good in moderation.
Yeah.
Eggs are
actually eat a lot of them now.
Yeah.
But just the whites.
Eat them but raw.
Yeah.
Eat them.
Okay, now also eat the shells. No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah. You have any more thoughts?
No, I think we pretty much hit it.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think it's a good movie.
I liked it much better than I thought I would.
It's got a good pace. I like that, like, a quarter of the movie takes place in sort of the back and forth with the Gnome King. Because so often with a villain, if they're not ever present, like, Hans Gruber in Die Hard is there throughout the whole movie with his chances to quip and to go back and forth. And there's limited interaction between him and the hero, over the walkie-talkies, and they meet face to face a couple times. But yeah, I like the idea that just you get to ruminate with this character and him offering this sort of thing. Like, he's sort of doing these sort of logic arguments with her of like, she's there to get back her friend and the emeralds for the Emerald City. And he's like, oh, so you think that, if someone steals something from someone, they should give it back. It's only right that they give it back, right, Dorothy?
Yeah.
And he's like clearly not taking her seriously. She's from Kansas, and he actually keeps calling her Dorothy Gale from Kansas. Like he's just going out of his way to, again, create that whole rural versus urban, from Kansas. But also one of my favorite moments in this movie is when he reveals he has the ruby slippers, which is just great, which of course is one of his big points of like telling Dorothy like, oh, you were so in such a hurry to get home, you dropped them and they landed right here on my head. And these slippers gave me the power to do everything that I've done. So literally, Dorothy, you are responsible for the destruction of Oz. But again, like that's the theme. Like Dorothy was rushing back to get home that she neglected, she left Oz so quickly to get back home. She didn't realize what she was leaving behind, and then it all got destroyed. I
noticed that she was barefoot when she got back on the riverbank too. So is that the next thing? Like, where did the shoes end up this time?
Well, she puts them on Ozma.
Oh, she did?
Yeah,
okay,
at the end, she puts them on Ozma. Yeah.
I thought she was tapping your... Okay, anyway. All right.
No, Ozma did the tapping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, at least unless I misremembered that, I feel like that was a pretty specific point. But yeah. Yeah, Return to Oz, terrifying. Don't watch it at night by yourself because it will scare you to death.
But do watch it. Yeah, I think it was fun.
Yeah. I think that's let's call that good enough.
I think that's Return to Oz. Right. But we would love to know what you think, folks. Do you think that the head is scary?
It is.
What is your association with Fairuza Balk, Piper Laurie, Jean March, any of these other things? I feel like there were other questions that we had for people, but that's enough. So let us know what you think. We would love to hear your thoughts. You can tweet at us or send us an email, and our handle is the same for both, YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can tweet at us or send us an email at ysmypodcast@gmail.com. I keep trying to condense that, and it doesn't work.
Yeah,
there's no way to do it quickly.
It's an awkward abbreviation.
Yeah. Sorry, y'all. Sorry. We have new episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening to us, there will be a new episode we are on most of your major podcast providers, specifically Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And while you're there getting the next episode, we would love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe, follow, whatever the parlance is. If you do that, you'll get our latest episodes right in your queue. And if you rate and review, then it lets other people know that they should give us a shot. So please do that. Just tell other people why they should check us out and tell your friends.
Please pad our numbers because it means a lot.
It does. It really does.
Seriously, we do like seeing that people are actually listening, but I would do this with my lovely wife, even if no one was listening at all.
It's fun for us. We hope it's fun for you.
Yep.
So, and then speaking of our next episode, in 2 weeks, it's going to be my turn to show Dave a movie, and I think that we're going to do The American President.
No. That's not Dave, right? That's the Dave is the comedy. American President is not.
Yeah,
okay. It's a Sorkin joint.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm ready for a lot of walking towards the camera
and talking
at
the same time.
All right.
Yes.
Cool deal.
So we'll see you in 2 weeks with the American President, and in the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.